Perfect.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a GreenFaith webinar. We'll allow a minute for people to log in and join us, and then we will get started. Okay, well, hi, everybody, again. We are going to get started with today's webinar on energy savings for faith communities, day 1. I see that already about 56 people have joined us, so welcome to you all. And I'm sure that additional people will join us as we go along. I think we had about 140 participants for the webinar today. And overall, we're going to cover a lot of ground today as far as energy conservation strategies for faith communities are concerned. And we definitely hope that this information is going to be valuable for you. We have tested these methods at hundreds of religious organizations and helped them to save a lot of money and energy, and you will definitely do as well. And I just want to talk about a couple of practical points before we get going. And the first is that you should now see our title slide, which says Energy Savings for Faith Communities, Day 1. And if that's the case, then you are in the webinar. And there's 2 different ways how you can listen to the audio portion of our webinar today. The first one is just to simply listen to the discussion through your computer, your tablet, or other device and its speakers. Very easy way to hear us that way. If that's not working for you, then an alternative option is for you to call into our conference call number, which was included in the email invitation or reminder that you received just a little while ago. And I'll repeat those numbers real quick so that you all have it. And there's 2 numbers you can call, and they are 1-408-638-0968. The other number is 1-646-558-8656. And then you have to follow the prompts, and you have to enter the ID number for that conference call. It's 567-107-240, and then you enter the pound after that. So that's how you can join us via a conference call. Okay, well, I'm having some problems with my screen right now. It's not moving to the next slide at the moment, but I'm going to continue anyway ahead, and I'm giving controls to my co-host Colby, and he can move the slides forward, hopefully. Okay, thanks anyway. So can you move on to the welcome slide?
Let's see here. Give me a few seconds.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'll just allow you to do that because I'm having some problems. So I think that's going to be a smoother way to go forward.
You got it.
But anyway, so we always like to say a few words of welcome before we get started to connect to you all there on the lines. And we'll start with introductions. So my name is Anne Rahikainen, and I manage GreenFaith's energy and sustainability related programs. I've been with GreenFaith already 3.5 years, And during that time, I've actually worked with over 100 religious organizations, mostly here in New Jersey, helping them to implement a lot of different strategies to clean their facilities and lower their energy use. We've done things like solar energy efficiency, renewable energy procurement, and we worked together on these type of energy conservation topics that we discussed today. So a lot of work in that area. And I am a certified energy professional by the USA Association of Energy Engineers. And I've actually worked in the energy field already 8 years by now. Before joining GreenFaith, I was working as a consultant for the energy sector. And today I have a co-host, Colby, who is helping me with the slides. Thank you very much, Colby. And Colby is a consultant for GreenFaith and has done a lot of energy auditing work for faith communities. So, Colby, why don't you give a little background about your experience and background for everybody?
Yeah, you got it. I'm the silly-looking guy on the right. I'm a certified energy manager, certified through Association of Energy Engineers, and have been in the field since 2001. We had actually contract with the State Energy Conservation Office where we were tasked to go perform energy audits at over 1,100 independent school districts. Many of them, like Houston, had 300 schools, and we would do kind of investment-grade energy audits. Did that, and fast forward, I'm also a missions pastor, an ordained missions pastor. Went to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary up in Boston. Did my thesis in Congo, in Goma, Congo, and really became passionate about the local house of worship and how we can use the religious community to invoke change. So right now I've combined the two, and I leverage sustainability to empower change in the most vulnerable areas, and been consulting, as Ann said, with GreenFaith for 3 going on 4 years now, and we've done many partnered energy audits, and looking forward to connecting with Ann on this presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Colby. So we are going to share the presentation together. As Colby said, I'll cover the first 30 minutes or so, and then Colby will cover the rest. And a couple of additional housekeeping rules we want to talk about before we get going with the presentation. And the first thing for you all to know is that you are currently on mute. You may have figured that out already. We are doing that because we are recording the session. So we want to avoid any background noises on the recording, but you will of course receive those recordings and slides after we have completed the course, the 2 webinars. And then there's another way you can communicate with us throughout the webinar, and we definitely want you all to do it. And those are the chat and Q&A buttons that should be located on the upper left-hand side corner of your screens. And there's different purposes for those buttons. First of all, when we ask you questions and do quizzes, we would like you to send us your answers using the chat box. And when you answer those questions with the chat box, select an option where you just send the answers to the panelists, to me and Colby, and that way we are the only ones who see those things. And then when you have questions for us about the topic of today, then use the Q&A button for that. And then we'll take 2 pauses during the presentation to answer a couple of your questions. And you know, if we get a lot of questions and don't have time to answer all of those, then we will send you answers after the fact, after we have completed the webinars. So that's the housekeeping stuff. Now let's talk about GreenFaith and our mission. All right, so GreenFaith, who are we? You probably have heard our name a few times, and maybe you've even met us at events and other places. We've been around already for 20 years. So in fact, we are one of the oldest environmental groups in the country. And here's our mission, which is to inspire, educate, and mobilize people of diverse religious backgrounds for environmental leadership. And you know, that means also that we're interfaith. We work with everybody. And what we do is that we really provide you the tools and resources that you need to take on environmental leadership. And that's what this webinar is also about. We have a lot of really good resources on our website for you to use. I have listed our website address there, www.greenfaith.org, so go and visit. And we also have information on our website about the different programs that we offer. There's lots of different ways that you can get involved, depending on your interest. Perhaps this kind of sustainability, greening your building is your interest. You might be interested in getting involved in climate change campaigning, environmental justice, or maybe you want to start a GreenFaith circle with other religious organizations in your town or community to take on environmental leadership. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. And I encourage you to go to our website and sign up for updates. That way you will receive information when we do different things, new campaigns, new programs, and you'll get that information that way. So now let's get going with energy conservation training, the topic of today. And the purpose of the webinars is for you to be able to learn after today's and after next week's webinar, first of all, some basic energy management strategies and practices. And then we also want you to learn to successfully actually implement an energy savings program at your congregation. So you'll get a lot of background, and we'll describe the sort of strategies that work in your setting. And then we also give you the actual tools that you need to implement this in your own congregation and in your own building. And we do have two sessions today and then next week. And I just want to mention briefly that they are not duplicate sessions. Both have a separate complementary content. So I noticed that majority of the registrations were for today, and then we just had a few for next week. So make sure that you also register for next week separately if you want to participate in the live session. If you can't, you will receive the recordings after the fact. And then, I want to just go over the agenda of the day one and day two real quick. And we, of course, started with the introductions. Now you know us. And next, we will go through some of the course materials that you will receive after the webinars are done. They will support the learning. There's a lot of additional good resources that we will share with you. Then I will talk a little bit about why you should be conserving energy. What really is the point of all of this, and why is it a valuable undertaking for you? And then we want to talk a little bit about the fact that you really do have the power and the leadership to take on this and do really well with it. You play a critical role in this. And then today we're going to talk about two specific energy saving strategies. One is temperature control, and this is actually one of the biggest opportunities that you will find. And then we will also talk about facility use, specifically how to change that usage or streamline it to save energy. And I just want to mention that these two are very powerful actions. And if you take nothing else from the two webinar series, then these two are critical. And the next week, we're going to dig into some other areas. We'll cover, first of all, lighting. We'll talk about appliances and also your building envelope. And we'll talk about specific strategies, how you can save energy on those three different areas. And then we will close out next week by talking about funding, funding and financing. That's actually a question that we get often, and you may already be thinking about this. How could you possibly take on energy conservation when you don't have much money in the budget to do so? Well, the reality is actually that there are lots of ways, and we're going to cover a lot of low-cost, no-cost initiatives and projects that you can do without spending a lot of money. But we'll also talk about other funding and financing opportunities for you to be able to do this work and do some of the bigger projects. And then we'll end the day too by talking about how you can get going, and we'll provide you some tools to get started. So again, I just want to make a mention again that after next week's webinar, we will email you a link to some materials that summarize, first of all, what we're going to talk about during the series, and we'll also give you some additional resources that you can use to help you out. And regarding those course materials, the first thing that you'll get is a 13-step GreenFaith document, as well as an action plan. And regarding that 13-step document, at GreenFaith, we have conducted hundreds of energy audits at religious institutions. And we've also done a lot of research, and we've done many energy conservation programs. And through all of that work, we have identified
Looks like everybody lost it, Ann. Oh, there we go. You get like a couple people saying they can't see it either. Apologies, folks.
So how does it, can you see it now on your end?
Yep, I can see it now. And it looks like you can control it now. That's good.
Yes, I can. Okay, so really sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Maybe that was a temporary glitch in the internet connection. But I was finishing the explanation about the course materials, and I think that you heard that we're going to give you 2 documents, and then we'll also provide you a link to Portfolio Manager, and it's a benchmarking tool, and you can use that to analyze the energy usage in your building, and we'll also give you videos and flyers that explain how you can use the program. So now let's get to know you all a little bit better. We like to do polls and conversations with you for that purpose. And now I'd like you all who are connected to figure out where that chat box is and answer this particular question. And the question is, what is the biggest challenge that you face in your institution with regard to energy stewardship? There's a couple of choices here: lack of funds, lack of interest, lack of knowledge, or perhaps lack of time or lack of internal support. So just take a moment and answer that question in the chat box, and let's see if we're getting any answers on that. Okay, I see some things are coming in. Thank you, that's great. A lot of people are answering. I see lack of funds quite a bit, lack of internal support. Wow, lack of funds is coming up a lot of times. Lack of interest. Okay, great. Keep those answers coming. So a lot of different pieces and a lot of different concerns. And thanks for participating in that conversation. So we've seen all of these pieces actually come up as concerns when groups are considering how to take on these issues. And I think, you know, as we just saw happen, a lot of times people think that they don't have the funds and money to do it. It's not in the budget. And there's always a concern that there's a lack of interest or lack of internal support. I didn't see anybody mention it this time yet, that they don't know how to do it, but it can be a problem at times, and that's something that we definitely try to correct with this webinar series. We'll show you how to do things differently and how to do it in a way that saves you energy. And we're going to cover all of these pieces today to get you started and help you with these challenges when they come up. Okay, now again, Colby, I need to
No problem. Send it over. Apologies, guys.
I'll send over the presentation for you to control. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, great. So now, why should you conserve energy? Why do you need to get involved in this? I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this because certainly you wouldn't be here participating today if you didn't think that there's a reason for this. But I just want to highlight it for a minute. Why is this so important? Of course, many of you might be thinking about the environmental reasons. Maybe you're concerned about climate change, or just want to be a good steward of cards creation. That's definitely important and a very good reason to get involved. But the other thing that we want to highlight is that for an average house of worship, energy costs are typically their second highest operating costs. Is that a surprise? The biggest is usually the personnel, and then energy is second after that. So that means that a lot of the money that you could be spending on things like programming, education, or doing something else in your building, you use that money to pay for your energy. However, with commitment and by implementing the steps that we recommend, the things that we will talk about during today and next week, most houses of worship can cut back their energy use by 15 to 20%. And sometimes I've even seen 50% reduction by just implementing temperature controls. So that's pretty amazing that it's possible. And with these graphs, Colby, can you go back to the graphs? Thanks very much. So with these two graphs, we show the actual drop in energy use for a house of worship that we worked with here in New Jersey. And when you look at the graphs, you'll see that there's a very substantial drop between 2007 and 2009, both in their electricity as well as their natural gas use. So this temple in New Jersey, they implemented a lot of the things that we talk about during the webinars. And they actually spent only $500 doing so. And the money that they spent was outside the scope of the things that we talk about, the priority things. It was just to put some peace in their refrigeration units. But other than that, they spent no money and they saved $15,000 pretty quickly. And as you can see, their energy usage dropped as well. So this stuff really works. Now, Colby, you can go to the next slide. All right, so here you can see the corresponding savings that I was talking about, and you see the initial drop, and then you see that the savings are sustained during future years, and they will definitely sustain themselves as this institution continues to work on this stuff. So what I just want to say is that this work is good for the environment, but it's also really good for the budget of your institution. Okay, so we've seen through our work that saving energy requires two ingredients. The first ingredient is the people, and then there's the technology. And we're going to be talking about both of these during the webinar. You really need both. But I think it's pretty typical that people often think that all you need is better new technology to get the energy savings created. But I think that in many cases, this type of new technology is quite expensive, and not everybody might be able to afford it. And the reality though is that oftentimes it's really the people behind the scenes that make things happen. By doing things like monitoring the energy use, by tweaking the way things are done, and learning how to save energy over time. And that's a really important piece. And the critical thing to remember is that it's the two ingredients, people and technology, and then making them work together is the way to get the success in energy conservation and also to maximize your results from this work. All right, so another way to look at this is to compare the differences between energy efficiency and energy conservation. And that's what we have here on this table right now. And we'll look at this just a little bit. So on the conservation side, we have the people. And what we want to do here is to change the individual's behavior, which is very important. And we change that behavior in ways that decrease energy use and conserve energy in your building. And then, oftentimes this doesn't really require financial investment, but you do have to invest some time to start changing those behaviors. And a really good example of this is, for instance, programming your thermostats properly and differently that you might have done in the past. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. And then on the efficiency side or the technology side, we are talking about the equipment. We're figuring out how efficient that equipment is. Whether we can save energy by tuning it or by replacing old inefficient equipment, by new equipment that uses less energy to provide the same amount of lighting, heating, and cooling for your building. And often this requires a capital investment, things like getting new energy efficient lighting or HVAC equipment for your building. But we're going to talk next week about how to find funding opportunities for that. So this is just a little bit more background, how people and the technology work together to maximize your results. And what you probably have learned from what I was talking about during those two slides is that to get success in energy conservation, you in part have to change the culture of your organization to do that. And the really cool thing about that is that as a member of your congregation who will take on the task of creating energy savings, you really do have the power to make a real difference because the people side is so different. So that's today is all about. And now we are going to start talking about some first foundational steps. And you may have wondered, what is the best way to get started? And we have identified these priority actions for you to take that will really ensure the success of your program. And we have identified each of these actually as a power priority. And that means that these are really high impact items. And you want to make sure that you do this and that you do them really well. And this is all about harnessing the people power of your organization to lay a really strong foundation for your energy savings program. And now I will go over each of these a little bit more. Okay, so the first step here is to go public with your plans. And the reason for that is that social science research shows that making your commitment public really matters. The reason is that it really helps with organizational follow-through. So one way to do this is to pass a resolution by your governing board, and that can be a really good first step. It will really help cement your institution's commitment to this. And we have a sample resolution for you in that 13-step document. And then, obviously that resolution is only one way to do it. There's plenty of other ways you can do it. And one would be to, for instance, do a sermon around this and talk about this, what you're planning to do. You can write a newsletter article, or you can go to the media and do a press release when you start working on this and start making some changes in your building, and you can tell about what you're going to do. Whatever you're doing, find ways to make this highly visible, because visibility matters really here a lot. So here's a sample resolution, and this one was passed by Dath Shalom Synagogue here in New Jersey in 2011. So actually quite a while ago already. But now I'd again like some feedback from you all. So find out that chat box, read through this resolution, and then let me know why you think this is a great example of a good resolution. So just look at it and pick some pieces that you like and let us know. Okay, so we are getting some answers. Somebody said that it shows a team-oriented approach, specific goals, grounded in faith, exactly. Deals with the financial as well as spiritual. Simple, straightforward, yes, exactly. Moral responsibility, great answers. Those are all absolutely true. So we think that, just to summarize some of the things that you already mentioned, we think that this resolution is a really good one because it's simple, to the point, it's short, but it talks about their religious values, it talks about some of the things that they will do, and it lists the fact that this is a Jewish value, and they also say that it's the right thing to do, and it's something that they're committed to as a board of directors of this institution. So I think it's a great example that you can use when you draft your own resolution. So use those pieces. Oops. All right. So the second piece, second foundational piece is creating an energy team to implement your energy savings program. And, as a member of a congregation, you know that creating a team or committee to get things done is how you get things done on any particular topic. And that's the case also with your energy savings program. And there are lots of different things for the team members to do. Somebody can establish your baseline energy usage. Some people can perhaps take the responsibility of tracking your performance and energy usage as you start to do things. They can implement some of the measures, and they can report to the governing board. So there's lots of different roles people can take on. And as you are putting together your team, we have some suggestions of what type of people will make great team members. And first of all, they're starting to show here on your screen already. First of all, you want to get somebody who can work hard on this stuff and will work well with others. And then we joke at GreenFaith that you want to have a cheapskate on your team. So that's somebody who is frugal-minded and knows how to manage finances that way. And then perhaps you want a chief geek. So that would be somebody that's good with technology and won't hesitate to, for instance, learn a new software program, Portfolio Manager, and really dig into that and start tracking your energy use. And then you want somebody who is a handy person and knows how the building operates and how to make changes. And then people of influence matter. That's because when those type of people speak about this stuff, that's when people come on board, and it'll be easier for you to implement your work. So a good example of a person of influence might be a clergy person or maybe members of your governing board. And then finally, you want somebody to lead the team that's a good leader and really passionate about this stuff. So, those are some of the typical team members that you might consider. All right, so now we'll talk about the final piece here, which is benchmarking. And, the question here is that how does your team know when it started that your program is actually working? The reality here is that you really can't manage what you don't measure. And the best way to do that in terms of energy is to benchmark. And benchmark basically means that you're measuring what your current starting usage is and how much you're spending. And you may also want to know what your carbon emissions are if the environmental piece of this is really important to you. And now just have a look at this quote from an energy team member from a church that we worked with. And this is really a testimonial from them about benchmarking and using Portfolio Manager. So I'll just let you read through that. Can you go back to that slide for a moment? Okay. So what they are saying here about Portfolio Manager, they used Portfolio Manager to analyze the energy use. They said that the real advantage was for them to accurately calculate how much they saved through their program, their energy savings program, and that was 12%. And they felt that that was much more effective way to communicate about the results than just listing, for instance, a bunch of projects that they had completed. So Portfolio Manager is a web-based tool provided by EPA. It's completely free, and it's a tool that lots of organizations are using these days to analyze your energy use. It's lots of big businesses, governments, and also lots of religious institutions are using this. And the really, really exciting thing about Portfolio Manager, and the reason why we recommend that you use it, is that it takes the various units of energy consumption, for instance, kilowatts of electricity, therms of natural gas, gallons of oil, and converts all of those into a couple of very easy to understand metrics that describe how much you're using energy. And then it's easy to track your performance going forward. And it also tracks your costs and carbon emissions. So it really does all the things that you need. And we highly recommend this particular program, and we'll provide you all the instructions and links so that you can take it on. Okay, let's then go to the next one, Colby.
Trying, hold on, sorry.
Oh, okay, so here's just to summarize the foundational steps that I spoke about. So you want to go public, you want to create your energy team, get some key people there that really care about this and also have the expertise to get the work done. And lastly, you want to establish your benchmark and keep the information updated. And you can use Portfolio Manager. That's the preferred way to do it. But, I know that a number of congregations also use Excel, and that works fine too. Okay, so let's just take like one question. Colby, can you have a look to see if we have any questions that we want to ask at this point, and then we'll move over.
Anybody have any questions? Don't see any yet.
No questions. I thought that I saw something there, but that's okay. We'll take questions at the end. So I'll pass it over to Colby now, and he'll continue with the presentation.
Yep. Great job, Anne. Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for the passion, and thanks for what you're doing. So as she said, once you have your public commitment, you've created your energy team, really the hands and feet of your energy policy in a sense. And once you've done your benchmarking, and let me just simply say, benchmarking is like a gas gauge to a car. What you see, when you see what you have in the tank, you make better informed decisions of any energy plan, any energy study. Benchmarking is the foundation of which we move forward. So once you have those, guys, now it's time to really figure out what our energy saving strategies are. And to keep it simple, we have two goals. We want to reduce the number of hours that various appliances, equipment are running. Obviously, you don't want it to run 24 hours a day if you're only occupied 8 hours a day. And secondly, you want to increase the efficiency of which they operate. Obviously, it makes common sense. If we can do those, we're going to make a big impact on that. So let's start off with the question. All right, and please, just in the chat box, let me know your answer. What do you think is the biggest energy use at houses of worship? Is it lighting? Sorry, giving it away. That wasn't me. Close your eyes. Hey, Ann, do you have control?
Sorry.
It's all right. Well, we gave it away. As we see with these energy saving strategies, really the biggest thing, up to 70%, is if you're looking at 10%, again, this is according to the Northeast, 60% of the energy saving strategies is really space heating. 20% or 10% is actually space cooling. Again, that's for the Northeast. That's reversed if you're in Miami. I was talking to a church yesterday that has no heat, only air conditioning. Imagine how humid it gets there. But it's still, thinking of if you're building energy use, 70% is related to either space heating, space cooling. Lighting can be 10%. Sometimes that ranges 10 to 20%. The others, like office equipment, 1%. refrigeration and cooking, that's 6%, so on and so forth. You can kind of see it, but the mentality is there. Of course, we want to look at lighting when we're doing studies. We want to look at everything else, but the biggest opportunity that we have is our space heating. And a big part of that is because our systems run kind of inefficiently and all over the place. One time you have one thermostat that controls the entire zone. So HVAC is the biggest opportunity we have. So let's kind of break that down a little bit more and show what that looks like. So sorry guys, there we go. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at our temperature control. It's one of the most effective ways to cut back on energy use in your building. And it creates, and I'm a big believer in this, I've done over 1,500 to 2,000 audits. It really creates the biggest opportunity. That's why you see we put the GreenFaith power priority to draw your attention to this thing. But there's two effective strategies, right? One is we want to get a 7-day programmable thermostat, or I would argue a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat. I do our energy studies, our energy audits. We always break it down into order of priority. I would say 99% of the time, the number one priority is good thermostat control. And the second piece is programming some meaningful temperature setbacks into them. Anytime we speak about temperature control, there's a blanket statement that applies to all situations. But you know what? Every building is different. Every system is different. Every building is of different sizes. You're located in different parts of the country. So we do recommend, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, a winter setback temperature of 45 degrees. And I'll talk about the reasoning behind that. And a summer temperature setback of 85 degrees. And again, I'll talk about that a moment. But bottom line, every building is different. Your building's better than we do, but we want to give you some ammunition in a sense. So keep moving forward for sake of time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to answer them. I think we have one, but we're making these recommendations based on our experience. I've seen a lot and I've done a lot of these, and I'm going to talk about, pipes, water pipes, and so on and so forth, and why 45 degrees opposed to turning it off, so on and so forth. Looks like we're getting some questions in there, and maybe we can stop in here in a second. And Anne, if you're looking through the questions and want to address one, just interrupt me, please.
Yeah, I think that in the interest of time, let's wait with the questions to the end. Just go through the slides, and then we'll see if we have time to answer questions.
Okay, I'll keep the rest of this under 2 hours. Just kidding, about 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So once we have so sorry, this thing is a little slow. Why programmable thermostats? Well, it's simple, right? These thermostats manage the temperature more precisely than manual thermostats. Think about a manual thermostat. You have 10 thermostats within your house of worship. Every one might be, if it's conventional, it means it's manual. You have to go to the actual thermostat to change the temperature one way or the other. Now imagine you have 10 of these. Going to each one of these over time is prone to user error. We see that all the time. Somebody in the congregation's too hot, so they turn it on, or they keep it on, or they press it on hold. As a response, it's running 24 hours a day. So it gives you the ability to program every day on a specific schedule. And regardless of if somebody's using it, it will set back at a certain time or a certain day. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But also the second point that we want to talk about, guys, is your zones. And again, I'm on a delay here. Okay, you want to adjust the temperature independent in each of your building temperature zones. And by zone, I mean, what do I mean by zone? If you have 10 different thermostats in your house of worship, then you probably have 10 different zones that control that specific area. Maybe you have one zone that controls the sanctuary, one that controls the youth room, one that controls the office period. Many smaller churches have one single zone. I think somebody said that earlier today. You have one single zone that conditions the entire synagogue, house of worship, church, or whatever that might be. But those are the two areas, because we want to manage temperature more precisely and adjust temperature independent of each other, of the respective zones. Now, purchasing a thermostat, typically they range about $50 if you're going to buy a new HVAC unit. Many times they come with it, but the very first step, guys, is to buy a 7-day programmable thermostat or a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, for each one of your heating and cooling zones. And again, they're pretty inexpensive, about $50. But be careful when you're buying these programmable thermostats. Again, I'm saying this based on my experience, based on GreenFaith experience. A temperature programmable thermostat will pay for itself on the average church 99% of the time with a very quick ROI. But when you're doing it, make sure you buy a 7-day. Many times you can buy a 5-day thermostat and a 2-day thermostat, or a 5-day and 1-day and 1-day, but that doesn't give you really good control over every single day of the week. Many thermostats now have holiday schedules, so on and so forth. They even let you address alarms if something's going wrong with one of your sensors, so on and so forth. So again, let's say it's Monday and you want to versus Sunday, you'll be able to adjust whichever day of the week based on what your schedule is. And again, we're going to talk about that here shortly. All right. Once you've got your 7-day programmable thermostat, guys, you want to install them in places that allow for accurate measurement. What do I mean by that? I'm sure many of you guys have radiators, right? Looking at your radiators, your thermostat sensor is designed to read the radius and the circumference directly surrounding it. So if it's right underneath a radiator, I see this all the time. During energy studies, that the heat rejected from that radiator causes that thermostat to misread and the HVAC to operate more than it should. Many times it's behind a door, it's behind a shelf, it's in a tiny cranny, it's above a copier machine, or one of the most common things I see, guys, it's in direct sunlight from a window that might be facing east or west. When that sunlight shines on that thermostat, it's causing it to misread. Where you place those thermostats make a big impact. All right, here we go. Now, setback temperature, what we mean, temperature, which is setback, we mentioned this a moment ago, and what we mean by setback, it is the temperature that the thermostat is set to when the space is unoccupied. So what does this mean? In the wintertime, how low can you go in a sense? What's the building as cold as possible while protecting it? Again, we have some people that might disagree with this. This is something that we see in the field. This is something that EPA recommends. But how hot can you go in the summer? Of course, you want to protect your pipes. We'll talk about that. But those are some of the things that we see. The reason for this, of course, is that you don't want to be heating and cooling the building when nobody is there. I go into Salt Lake City, for example, and do an energy audit, and a church, it gets in 10 to 15 degrees regularly there in the winter time, and somebody that sets the heating back from 68 to 65 is still going to continuously heat the facility. It makes a big difference. But setbacks equal savings. Setback savings also start immediately when you put your settings into use. You're likely to see savings already on the next bill. If we had all the time in the world, I'd show you about 10 more examples. And remember that each degree, guys, every degree, unoccupied or occupied, saves 1 to 3% on the HVAC portion of your utility bill. If you can go from an occupied temperature from 72, say cooling, 72 to 74, that's up to 6% savings. And then same thing with heating. But let's go as low or as high as we can go while still maintaining building infrastructure and comfort of occupants. All right, so question for you guys, and I'm gonna go a little bit faster here, but it's the typical hot and humid August day, all right? Let me know your answers in the chat section. The worship service ended an hour ago. The sanctuary won't be used again for 3 more days. This application thermostat is always set at 72 degrees. So the question, what should the temperature be set at while the sanctuary is not in use? 85 degrees, absolutely. Great job. Yep, 85 if possible. Again, nobody knows the building better than you, but it's really expensive practice when you're heating and cooling the building when nobody is there. But humidity is also an issue. Maybe you live by an area where humidity and per ASHRAE you need outside air that comes into the building, or you have indoor air quality issues. But when people aren't there, and if possible, you can close the outside air dampers, then there's no reason for those things to be open when it's unoccupied. Second question, maybe. All right, in the winter, the outside temperatures are often in the 30s. The classroom area is used all day, Sundays, and also Wednesday and Thursday. Again, it's occupied on Sunday. It's not occupied Monday and Tuesday, but again, it's occupied Wednesday and Thursday evenings. What should the temperature be set at Sunday evening? We have one person that says 45 to 68. Again, nobody knows the building better than you do. I would say as close to 45 as possible. I'm sure this might be 55 to prevent drywall cracking. I'm sure. Let's address this at the end as well. But according to the EPA, according to our experience and mine, again, every building's different. You know your building better than we do. All right, you use your common sense, but do it as low as you possibly can. All right, same scenario, but just different question. The exact same question scenario. If it's 30 outside, we operate Sundays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, right? What should the temperature be set at on Wednesday evening after the classes? We might have some different answers on this one. What do you guys think? We got 45, we got 55, absolutely. 60, if 60 works for you, I would always encourage a little bit lower if possible. But again, you know your building better than we do. Answer, 45 degrees, if it would show up. Yeah, 45 degrees. Actually, the rule of thumb, if your building is unoccupied at 4 hours or more a day, right, according to the generic rule of thumb, 4 hours or more a day, you should move it to setback unoccupied 45 degrees. And we're going to talk about how long it takes to heat the next day as well. Actually, on the next slide, we're going to talk about that. So let's look at programming. A few things to remember about programming your thermostats. 3 basic things, guys. You want your building occupants to be comfortable. You don't want, if your setback is 45 degrees, you don't want to turn the system on right when people arrive. Uncomfortable people are unhappy people, and we don't want unhappy people. So you have to ramp it up. Sometimes ramping up can be starting the system 30 minutes before, based on how big your zone is, how big your system is, where you're located in the country. Sometimes that could be 4 or 5 hours. But know what and test it, and test your ramp up time. What is your ramp time? Does it take 2.5 hours? Many times the new thermostats will do this for you. But if it takes 2.5 hours, you need a building to be ready to go, or a zone to be ready to go at 8:30, turn it on at 6 o'clock. But again, don't freeze your pipes. Keep it at 45, 50 degrees in order to maintain safety of those frozen pipes. Frozen pipes, expensive, emergency maintenance, so on and so forth. Sorry, I'm locking up here again. Match the setbacks of a facility use. Understand where your zones are, what your temperature setbacks in the facilities are, and try to match that if you can. And come on. And check your program quarterly. Even with programmable thermostats that aren't guarded by a box with a key, you have your congregants that might go in and press hold. I see it every single house of worship that we do an energy audit. There's one thermostat that's locked on hold, and that's maintaining 67 degrees 24 hours a day. So if you only check it quarterly, which is at minimum, that means that system possibly has been running for 3 months, 24/7. That's an expensive practice. If you can do it weekly, monthly, and you have the time, I highly, highly encourage you to do that. Many people address concerns about organs and Torah scrolls. Again, in the 13-step document that we shared with you at the beginning of the webinar, really addresses this. The biggest issue I do want to bring up, guys, is it's based on humidity. So for very cold or hot temperatures or fluctuations in the temperature necessarily is not the concern, it's humidity. and you manage well this humidity with, for example, with organs. You want to make sure that you turn the organ in the temperature it's going to be played at. So if you're going to be playing the organ at 68 degrees, tune it to 68 degrees. Wi-Fi enabled thermostats are, again, a beautiful thing, in my opinion. If you have 10 different programmable thermostats, you still have to go to each one of those programmable thermostats. But with a Nest, and I don't work for Nest, I don't work for anything, I'm not trying to sell you these, right? We're a neutral third party, but thermostats like a Nest can allow you the capability from your iPhone, from your tablet, from your computer to adjust temperature per zone. Many of them have motion sensors. Many of them have the adaptive learning capability, which means they know it takes 2 hours. Nest is a great example. They know it takes 2 hours to reach occupied set point. So it will start automatically 2 hours before, and you can set everything from your handheld device. Typically, these the costs for this range from 100 to 500. This is a very cheaper solution than, say, a very direct digital control system. But I highly recommend you guys to look into it if you can. Again, be careful where you locate it. You don't want to locate them above radiators. You should look for a Wi-Fi thermostat that allows settings every day of the week, and adjust the setbacks of 45, 85 degrees based on your system. You want to tune the equipment according to the specifications, guys. Scheduling regular annual maintenance to ensure that the equipment is performing as it should be. The older your equipment is, the less likely it's running at its design specification, its design efficiency specification. A lot of utility companies will fund and pay for you to have what we call a retro commissioning. We don't have time to go into all of that, but basically you have a maintenance individual or a consultant that come out and they balance your system based on the specification. I do encourage you, when you get that, you ask the contractor for the performance specs, actual performance after the servicing, and a printout of the readings of the test results if available. But doing this maintenance is important for 2 reasons. Dirty filters decrease airflow through your equipment, making it less efficient. They also create poor indoor air quality. Guys, change and clean your HVAC filters as much as you can, especially at peak electric performance or heating, cooling performance. So if it's a hot August day, you're going to have to cool a lot more than needed. Change those filters out more regularly. Just a quarter inch of dust or air through that can crash an entire air conditioning unit, can create bad indoor air quality, and can reduce the efficiency of that unit. So recap, what are the 2 most effective strategies, and let me know your answer, for energy usage through this temperature management? Is it installing and programming 7-day programmable thermostats? Again, we're looking for 2 most effective. I don't see any answers yet. Tuning and heating and cooling equipment to efficiency, set meaningful temperature setbacks, or changing and cleaning air conditioning filters. There you go. We got A and C. All of them are important, but the most, as we said, is A and C. Sorry, freezing up here a little bit. Programmable thermostats installed with your setbacks. As a final topic for today, guys, just a few slides here. Let's talk about facility use. This is an important piece as well, as it goes hand in hand with programming thermostats. So once you have your thermostat installed, right, then you have to look very closely at your building schedule, right? You have 10 different zones, you have 10 different schedules probably going on, and you want to match your zones to the building schedules, right? But there's 3 questions that we need to ask ourselves. Let me go through those. Where are your temperature zones? Another way of phrasing this is, what areas of the building are heated and cooled by each of the thermostats? So you have 4 thermostats, and you want to know which parts of the building and which rooms are particular each thermostat controls, it's important to know this exact and write it down. Right? But gosh, again, the goal, use as few zones as possible. No need to turn on 8 zones to operate one office. If you're only coming in on a Saturday for one office, just turn on the zone, if possible, that maintains that office. Or another option would be, if you have a big chiller or a big boiler, maybe you can put that one small office on a unitary air conditioning, its own separate air conditioning or heating, based on where you are in the country. I saw somebody from Brazil, probably don't have a lot of heating as much in Brazil in comparison to maybe other parts. But the second thing, how are meetings scheduled in the facility now, right? Which really means, right, that you want to find out which rooms are used for which particular meetings on any given day of the week. When do those meetings start? When do they end? And how many people do you have on average? And how many people are attending a particular meeting? Again, you'll need to get the facility use schedule from whoever does the scheduling at the moment. Could be your church administrator. You might already have a general sense of this, but it's important to be exact and also know the schedule is shaping at the current time. And actually, this is one of my favorite slides because it causes us to think strategically. So how can we reschedule our facility? If possible, can you reuse the same zone? And let me give you a brief example. Again, say you have 4 zones in your house of worship. You have a meeting in zone 1, which means you have an aggressive setback strategy and schedule. You've let it ramp up 3 hours to hit occupied temperature, and you have a 2-hour meeting there. The meeting is done. You have a second meeting. Maybe you have it scheduled in zone 4. Well, it doesn't make sense to ramp up that system for 3 more hours when you can just reuse zone 1, right? So reuse the same zone if possible. Like I see here in Texas all the time, that many of these larger sanctuaries have 2 20-ton units. Why would you want to have a smaller meeting of say 3 or 4 people in the large sanctuary where I have to turn on 40 tons of air conditioning when I can just use a 3-ton? I mean, we're thinking strategically, and if possible, use members' homes. I know that kind of defeats the purpose of a house of worship at times, but when appropriate, I encourage you guys to use your members' homes. And then here, just a few left, guys. Another idea we've seen on congregations is go dark on a given night or on a given day. If there are a number of small meetings that day or just one meeting, move those meetings to another day or to a member's home so they could shut down the building for the time being. So this is something that you can also try in your own building whenever you can. Go dark and hot in the summer, or cool and quiet in the winter, right? Moving meetings around. Guys, remember the building, but remember to use and review building usage regularly because scheduling decisions can make a big impact on your use. So last slide here is once you got your building schedule as efficient as possible, you can adjust your setbacks on your programmable thermostats. Quick example, here we're showing temperature zones on the very top, if you can see that, and the schedule of the setbacks at the bottom. It's kind of complex, but yours may be simpler. The most important point, guys, is that you have tracked facility use in every zone so that you can adjust the thermostat accordingly. The schedule shows that when setbacks should be activated in every zone of the building during every day of the week. So this gives us a plan, and it's easy to implement. You know, a quick example, if you can see that arrow right now, this is a synagogue in New Jersey that, according to their plan, their setback was 55. Hey, 55 is great. You're setting it back from 70 to 55. That's a 15-degree delta T or temperature difference. But this specific example saved 1/3 of the energy at this synagogue just by changing the set paint. Guys, this is no cost. This is a behavior change, and you're still keeping the integrity of the building. Again, you don't want to have cracked sheetrock, humidity issues, etc. The point is, though, just be as aggressive as you can. So just to recap, when you go back to your facility, find out where the temperature zones are, get the schedule and meetings of where they are held, and think about how to modify the facility use for the efficiency to save some areas. As part of that, you should also think about local use habits. There's some obstacles that you need to overcome that stand in your way. Make some of the changes if you can. Again, if you do 2 of the things that we do, of everything we've talked about, at least in my portion, at least set back your temperature and at least get good control over your zones. And that's my spiel.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Colby. We've gone almost 10 minutes over time. So what I suggest that we do at this point is that we have about 13 questions that people have asked during the webinar, and we'll answer those offline. So you will receive an email from us, and we'll provide you a written answer to your questions, because I know that, for instance, Colby has to run as we get done here. So Colby, thanks so much for your part, and can you just move the presentation to the last slide and give the controls back to me? Okay, great, thank you so much. So we are going to see you again next week. I have provided there my email address. If you have anything specific that you want to address directly to me, questions, comments, feedback, feel free to use that email. Otherwise, we will just speak to you again next Thursday, November 3rd at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and then we will talk about new topics, lighting, appliances, building envelope, and funding and financing, and how to get started well with this type of work. So with that, thank you for your participation, and we'll talk to you soon.